A rapid knock came from the cottage door. Fluttershy was shocked out of her reminiscing like a splash of cold water to the face. Quickly but carefully, she closed her precious iron locket and tucked it away in the folds of her pink mane, out of sight but still on her person at all times. She hurried to her door and turned the knob. God damn it! Hi, Fluttershy. Pinkie Pie, abrasive and vociferous as always, sported a ear-to-ear grin in a pink envelope between her teeth. Oh, hi, Pinkie, the canary Pegasus whispered. I just came by because Mrs. Cake let me out off the hook for now. I just wanted to give you this invitation to Ellis's little big welcome party. It's my own invitation because I thought I should do something different for some pony so different. And since he loves my cupcakes so much, I'm not gonna make him a cake, but a big stack of cupcakes. That's why it's called Little Big, because it's a big helping of little cupcakes. Her voice trailed off. Fluttershy waited for her to go on, but she was only looking at her with a perplexed expression. Fluttershy, she began, have you been crying? Oh, the caretaker exclaimed. Her eyes were red and puffy, and the fuzz on her cheeks were still moist and darkened. She looked like a wreck, but she hadn't been expecting company for the rest of the day. It's nothing, came her terse reply. It doesn't look like nothing, girl. I just stubbed my hoof. Oh, Pinkie winced for a friend. Bummer. I hope you feel better soon, because I was going to ask you to help me with the party preparations in Ponyville. Do you want to come? She glanced back into her cottage. Nothing needed to be done for animal friends until the next morning, so no worrying about that. Angel was napping upstairs, but he'd probably stay like that for the rest of the evening. He had no reason to stay in the melancholy of her lonely cottage. Sure, I'll come help. Yay! I can't do that. Sugarfield mare cheered. It was a good thing Fluttershy's ears were folded. Oh, just remember. She motioned the letter in her mouth. Motioned to the letter in her mouth. The Pegasus took it gingerly. It's your super special VIP, very important pony invitation. It's only for my bestest friends in the whole world. Well, thank you, Pinkie, but how's it different from the other invitations? It's pink! Oh, God. Okay. Fluttershy exited her home and shut the door behind her. The pink party pony was already bouncing off towards the town. Come on, time's a-wasting. Coming, she called after and followed her friend down the road, but not before wiping her eyes of soggy irritation and checking if the locket was still in place. All right, said Ellis as he seated himself in a chair across from Shirley. Ask away. The schoolteacher began with the usual questions that every pony had asked before. Things like, where are you from? How do you get here? How did you get here? How do you walk on two legs? Can I wear your hat? Ellis answered these with no problem. The purple mare buzzed with well-contained exuberance. She seemed to enjoy asking questions, a contrast from always answering them from the young ones. Speaking of which, Skirloo and Sweetie Belle seemed to have gotten into a scuffle about one of them accidentally using the other's ball. Settle down, you two. Don't make me assign any more homework than I have to, Shirley scolded. The effect was immediate. The fillies stopped their bickering and resumed their game. You're saying, ma'am? Ellis motioned. She collected herself. I forgot what I was going to ask you, but I had another question that I've been meaning to ask. How did you come to meet Applejack? He adjusted his sitting position and rested his elbow on the table in front of him. Well, as I said before, I ended up in her apple orchard with a headache and a face full of dirt. But that time I was kind of hungry, and being in a field full of apple trees, I couldn't pass up the opportunity. She found me sitting on a branch eating her apples. I swear if I knew I wouldn't have done it. She seemed to ignore his frantic assurance and instead pressed further for details on his story. So what happened? What happened next? Well, it ain't that important how it all went down. He shifted his discomfort due to his injury he acquired from Applejack. But we walked on down to her barn, and he paused, unsure of exactly how much information he wanted to disclose. And, well, I'm sure the whole thing yesterday can fill you in. I wasn't in town that day. I was grading papers in the schoolhouse, but heard of it from my sister. I didn't believe her. Did you come to that meeting to find out? No, didn't bother. Why not? You haven't met my sister. Shirley gave a frustration huff. It's lucky though that you managed to meet the elements first before. Believe it or not, they're probably the most sensible ponies in town. Couldn't imagine what it would be like if you got roped with. Ellis suddenly raised his hand, signaling a full stop of conversation. Hold up now. What did you call them? The elements. The elements of harmony? Didn't they tell you all about that? About what? Ellis had not even caught the slightest hint of the word elements coming from Twilight or Applejack. By Cheerilee's tone of voice, it sounded important. Twilight and her friends are the bearers of the elements of harmony, a power created and sanctioned by the Alicorn sisters themselves. They use the elements to defeat Nightmare Moon and Discord. Who? Ellis repeated, still not registering any of it. They did. Did they really not tell you? Those 6 mares are probably the most important ponies in Equestria. They saved it twice using the magic of friendship. Ellis burst into a snickering fit. What? You don't believe me? Cheerilee at this point was rapidly approaching full hysteria. Ma'am, no offense, but just about everything I've come across in this place is unbelievable. I'm darn near tired of constantly questioning my notions of reality, so I just accept whatever I'm told. A lot easier than that way. He leaned back in his chair. I'll take your word for it, Miss Cheerilee. I just thought the whole magic of friendship thing sounded silly. Just one thing I'd like to ask. If Applejack and her friends are so darn important, why don't they get much attention at all the time? Well, first of all, they're guardians, not celebrities. Also, when there's no impending doom, they're just normal ponies, and they go about their lives in their own way. Most equestrians respect their distances and leave them be. Cheerilee glanced over to the Crusader's alley. Sweetie Belle was using her hoof and a soft cloth to shine her ball. She grinned and made several comical faces in the ball's reflection surface. Where was Skulu? That would make sense. To tell you the truth, if that were me, I would like all the extra attent. His speaking was abruptly cut off as an orange blur came up from behind and lashed onto the back of his head. Gotcha! Giggled Skulu playfully, but Ellis reacted in a way that no pony would have expected. Jockey on me! God damn it! Jockey on me! He shot up in his seat, knocking in backwards, attempting to tear the filly from his skull. Skulu, childish glee, quickly transitioned to panic. She clung for dear life among the swaying, stumbling movements of the tall biped. It was just so happened that she held on in such a way that it impaired Ellis's vision. Ellis gasped. Everyone in the alley turned their heads in commotion. Get it off! Get it off! Get it off! His inner ear functions went into overdrive as his feet took him to whatever direction required to balance himself. His rational thought had yet to catch up with him. Blinded, his imagination conjured images of his time back in Southern America. He saw himself being ridden towards everything, from fire to acid, from fatal falls to a horde of angry zombies. Meanwhile, Skulu, still frozen in fear, did the first thing any Pegasus would do when in danger. She fluttered her tiny wings as rapidly as she could, propelling her and Ellis backward. Get the freaking thing off my back! Whoa! His legs caught on a low rail, and he and his assailant went tumbling head over heels. He landed painfully on the ground. And what do you have to say for yourself? Cheerilee chided, glaring to convey disappointment rather than anger. As a teacher, she learned that it helped children learn from their mistakes. Skulu fidgeted in place, eyes to the ground. She brought her head up slowly, attempting to meet her teacher's scowling gaze. She opened her mouth to try to force a word out without choking up. It took her a full of seconds before it came out a quiet croak. I'm sorry. At least she regrets it, thought Cheerilee. The ruckus that she caused brought the manager out of his office. He was disconcerted, to say the least. She had to explain the whole thing while most of the patrons of the alley looked at her and whispered behind her back. What they say she didn't hear, but it definitely wasn't something they would say to her directly. Sweetie Belle had nothing to add to the matter. She only remembered Skulu saying that she was going to Lily Philly's room. The Orange Pegasus didn't really have a reason either. She just thought it would have been funny. Sometimes kids do the stupidest things for reasons they could not cite. Not one of them was amused by your stunts. Not even Ellis. Now apologize to him clearly, so every pony can hear you. Scootaloo craned her neck up to see the tall human's face. He had his arms crossed, and his expression was annoyance. But his cheeks were still hot. The ordeal was just as embarrassing for him as it was for her, maybe even more. He let himself phase back to the apocalypse and made himself look like a loony. Lucky for him, Shirley was so preoccupied with reprimanding her student that she didn't bother to ask why he reacted in such a way. He may have mentioned what exactly jockeys are to Sawdust and Ballpeen so they might understand. Probably not, though. All beasts of burden by nature. They probably they probably couldn't comprehend just how jarring it is to have something suddenly hop on your back. It ain't right for a man to be ridden like that. I'm sorry, were the words she pulled through her quivering lips. Ellis nodded. Just don't do that again, Kay? Okay. Scootaloo let her eyes return to the ground. Ellis released a loud huff. He just merely surmised that when he became an old man, he would be one of those unapproachable war veterans that would have occasional episodes and convince themselves that they were still fighting the Charlies, like his grandpa. Don't think for a second that you're coming back here anytime soon, Shirley added. You were in enough trouble as it is. You'd be lucky if you could come back here at all. Okay, she squeaked. Ellis returned to his lane where his co-workers were sitting on a bench waiting for the human's return. He waved as he approached. Ballpeen scooched over to make room for him as he sat down. Sorry about that. I really thought I wouldn't have to deal with any that anymore. Sawdust leaned over. So that was... Let's just forget it. Forget about it, okay? Unicorn raised his hooves in a gesture of non-apprehension and didn't press the matter any further. What now? Asked Ballpeen. Ellis was the first to reply. I'm tuckered after the whole deal. I think it's time for me to head back to AJ's. It was nice hanging with you. He lifted himself off the bench. Wait! Ellis stopped at Sawdust's request. We were just about to head down to Rum's place for the night. What's that? Rum Run owns the tavern here. It's called the Prancing Show Pony, a rustic little place. Looks just like a tavern from 100 years ago. Best place to go for a drink in Ponyville. Ellis blinked. You mean you guys have alcohol here? What made you think we didn't? I shrugged. I don't know. Well, do you want to come with? I'm sure Applejack won't miss you too much. He seemed to be very likable about idea to him. An evening at the bar, hanging out with his new friends and having a taste of a local brew while he was at it. That last prospect was irresistibly tantalizing, since it came up in his mind. He was dying to know what beer made for ponies tasted like. Hopefully not like horse feed. But as he contemplated it further, that guilty feeling came up again. He feared that Applejack, his gracious host, would not agree with it. To be fair, Ellis hasn't known her for long, but his gut told him he would be letting her down somehow. Well, he thought, we didn't exactly agree on a time, just as long as I got back there. An acceptable justification. If it really started to bother him, then he could always leave and head down the road to Sweet Apple Acres. I think I'm down. Sawdust grinned as answer. Awesome! Let's give the house balls back and head out. It's not too far. After returning the heavy balls back to the rack, the trio began to head for the door. Through the transparent surface of the glass, the sun's radiance was slowly transitioned to an orange glow as it sank in distant mountains. Shadows grew longer and the air became cooler. The bustle of the streets was gradually waning. Ponies began returning to their homes for supper and good night's sleep. Sawdust pushed the door open for his friend. Ballpeen quietly thanked him with a mutter and a nod. Ellis was about to head out the door with them when Shirley caught up with him. Ellis! He turned around. Oh, hey, what's up? She came to an awkward stop right in front of his leg. I just wanted to thank you for the chat, and also apologize for the mess Scootaloo made. It's all behind us now, ma'am. It was nice talking to you. We should do it again sometime. Where are you heading now? He pointed his thumb back at Sawdust, who was still holding the door, allowing the cool breeze to invade the alley. Me and guys are going out to the bar. Which one? Prancing Show Pony, or something. He turned back to his unicorn. Right? He nodded. Yeah, that's the one. The rough and the rough and rowdy tavern where every pony consumes irresponsible amounts of alcohol and makes a fool of themselves? I think so. Her expression deadpanned. Say hi to my sister for me. Oh, God! After a short and calm stroll through the streets of Ponyville, now running and chasing this time, they arrived at the tavern. Sawdust wasn't kidding when he said it was rustic. Creaking wooden sign hung above the wooden door, gently swinging in a soft wind. It proclaimed the name of the establishment in archaic equestrian lettering, which Ellis couldn't read, of course. Paired with a silhouette of rearing earth pony, the building itself was made from aged but dense and robust wood. Warm candlelight flickered in the imperfect surface of the windows. Thumps of hooves on the hollow wooden floor could be heard even from outside, accompanied by the occasional burst of baritone laughter. "Here we are, dudes," said the Ocre Earth Unicorn. Yeah. Upon ascending the steps, pushing the door open, they agreed with a number of heads turning their way. There was a few quiet gasps when some laid eyes on Ellis, but not enough attention was drawn to deter the clamorous ambience. The interior looked cozy and inviting. In one end of the room was a burning hearth which cast an orange glow. The floors, just like the walls outside, were sturdy, yet weathered. Oak tables of non-matched shapes and sizes were strewn artlessly across the floor. Ponies of all colors and professions either sat with their haunches on the floor or in low chairs. Iron-bound wooden tankards with handles big enough to fit a pony's hoof through were tipped to the mouths of merry drinkers while they spun out stories and dirty jokes. Oh, look, there's a brown hourglass cutie mark colt again. That makes about, 16 times? From behind the counter came a wave of the construction workers. Said welcomer was the bartender, Rum Run. She was a mid-aged mare, though a bit younger than a mare. She had perky eyes, the color of her namesake. They shone with a youthful demeanor of a mare who chose to ignore the advancing of her age. Her jonquil coat was smooth and shiny. Her mane, which was a rich auburn, was fashioned into 4 tight braids, 2 on each side, matching her tail, which was 1 thick braid. Her cutie mark was a invented rum bottle splashing out some of its bronze substance. Rum gave a smile, a thin line of ruby lipstick barely showing on her lips, as the 3 converged to the high bar stools and took their seats. "Evening, mates," she greeted, a shocking contrast of her supplementous appearance. Rum Run had a rough and dirty accent hailed with a toned outback. "Hey, barkeep, brought a new patron for you." Saw tilted his head towards Ellis. The human was held over the counter. The distance between the seat and the table made to accommodate the dwarfish form of a pony. He gave a little wave. The bartender raised an eyebrow. "My, you're tall one. You're also that new Ellis fella I've heard about. Over the hundreds of ponies you could be with you. How do you get stuck with these 2 gits?" "Nice to meet you too. Nice to see you too," Sawdust sarcastically remarked. "I got a job working with these guys." "Oh, let's hope you don't have to be anywhere in the morning. Tomorrow's our day off," the unicorn interjected. "You know that, dude. We come here every week." "I ain't a dude." "Dude, I call every pony dude. Heck, I call my mom dude." "Yeah, whatever." She turned to Ellis and reached over to the counter with her hoof. I'm a Rum Run." He took the hoof in his hand and gave a quick shake. "Ellis, nice to meet you, ma'am." "See," she said, looking back at the Sawdust. "This here good fella addresses me right and prosper." He didn't grace her with a response, only a roll of his eyes. "So," she uncorked a bottle of gin and spoke to Ellis, "what can I get for you?" "What do you have?" Rum tilted the bottle to a hoof-made shot glass, carefully poured it, set the bottle down, and slid the glass across the counter to a pony to their right. He caught it with a nod of thanks. She turned back to the human. "We have about every brain-killing booze under the sky, but none None of the pansy stuff they have in Canterlot or Manhattan. Just got in a shipment of vodka straight from Stalingrad. I'd rather have with the small stuff. Not much hard drinker. A beer will do. She trotted over to a large barrel nestled in the wall's alcove with a stein in her mouth. Placing it under the spigot, she cranked the lever, filling the container with foamy amber liquid. She brought it back to the counter and set it in the front of Ellis. You softies need love too, I guess. Some of the local brew for you. Gingerly, Ellis gripped the handle and brought it up to his face. He took a long, skeptical look at the drink, sloshed it around, sniffed it. Rum Run became impatient. Drink the bloody thing, will ya? I haven't been in this business for half my life to poison some random sod. Sorry. He tipped the cool drink to his mouth, then took a slow swallow. The boldness of it made his eyes go wide for a moment. He set the stein down with a sigh. Still stronger than what I usually drink, he commented. She seemed to be taken aback. And what the hay do you drink? Water? I can take it all right. This is just different for me. It's like the real expensive beer. I only serve quality stuff, mate. Mate, I wouldn't be doing my business if I didn't. It's good. Goddamn, it's good. Ellis took another sip, and it doesn't taste like alfalfa, thank God. What about you, Saw? She addressed the unicorn. Probably some of the cider, he said, staring off into space for a bit. Then he jumped in his seat and groaned in dismay. Crap! Forgot my corn in the alley. I need to go get it before it closes. I think it's about time you started using that brain of yours, teased Rum Run. Sawdust ignored her and hopped off the bar stool. He turned to Ballpeen, who was sitting on the other side of Ellis. Peen, I need you to watch the big guy while I'm gone. Shouldn't take too long. All right, he replied, yet not really sure of himself. Sawdust took no notice and hastily left the building. A moment of silence for the three hung in the air as Ellis gradually sipped down his ale. Rum was the one to break it. So, Ellis, the one in question looked at her and acknowledged her with a brief Well, what would you call yourself? He set his mug down. Human. That's what you're looking for, right? Yeah, human. I just gotta know. Are all humans like this pansy, or is it just you? Ellis scowled. I just have a preference of the light stuff, okay? I've heard that 50 bloody times before. First time we Ponyvillians get an alien, he can't even hold his liquor. Well, I think Whitey there can take more than you. She challenged, referring to, of course, to Ballpeen. Said Pexus stiffened. He really wished Sawdust were here. The human sized himself up with a brash bartender. Listen, sister, I'm a big guy, and I can hold it all right. I can take anything you can throw at me. Rum Run cocked a mischievous grin. That's so. Since time immemorial, labor was always been the well-known creed of the Earth Ponies. It was a part of them as a strongest and most enduring of the three races of equestrian, and they took pride in it. They were not able to fly or use magic, but like Pegasi or unicorns, but this did not put them in a disadvantage. They earned and maintained their equality through the sweat of their brows and their near kinship with all things that grew in the ground. Ask an Earth Pony elder, and he would tell you that the same saying, word to word, that had been chanted by their ancestors for as far as any pony could remember. Work is the greatest consolidation to the soul. It hardens the hooves and strengthens the bones. It burdens the idleness from the muscles and cleans the mind of doubt. Work gives purpose to a pony. With purpose comes accomplishment. With accomplishment comes happiness. And happiness is the key to a long life. Those who work hard shall live it well. Abject did not feel consoled. She did not feel strong. She did not feel clean or accomplished or cathartic. She did not feel happy. Empty eyes fixed to the dirt. Applejack limped towards the farm with a full cart and haul. The wooden wheel hit a small divot, causing the cart to bump. The orange-haired pony grunted as a lace of stinging pain stabbed her legs. A group of apples tumbled out of her buckets, but she didn't even notice the lengthy trail of apples she was carelessly leaving behind. She merely continued to trudge on thoughtlessly, with the occasional shimmering droplet falling from the rivers on her cheeks. Applejack could not recall exactly when she gave up. Maybe when fighting the nightmarish visions became too much. Maybe it was when she hadn't the constitution left to stop them. Maybe it was when she realized that the more she fought, the faster they came. So she accepted the hopelessness of her efforts. Whatever the reason, the haggard mare allowed the corruption to invade her mind. Each image of horror and butchery stuck her mind until she was numb, until her conscience was saturated with blood, grim spittle, and vomit. They all blurred together into a thick screen of revulsion and gore-filled profanity, and all she could do was work. The instinctual action that has been carved into her very bones from years of her routine. Her mind was too chaotic to think. She could hardly remember what her friends looked like back when they were alive. Applejack blinked away the blurriness of her vision, inhaling a cool gasp of reality before expelling it in a moaning sob. They were still alive, right? Right? She was not sure. The white-hot malevolence had charred every corner of her brain, leaving nothing but a blackened blemish on her innocent mind, so utterly undeserving of her torment. For a while, she could not feel anything but pain and sorrow. Now she could not feel anything at all. After that seemed like several eternities, she arrived at her destination, the barn. The doors already swung wide open. Applejack carried her burden aside and unhitched the cart. She failed to hang her yoke on the wall mount. It thumped to the ground and tossed dust into the air. She didn't care. She was too tired to care. It was only when she reached the front door of her house, when it clicked in her mind that it was already dark outside. She had ignored the passage of time during her day in the orchard. The significance of it did not matter. Of it did not register, though. She told herself that she just worked a bit too late. Nothing unheard of. Applejack opened the door and hobbled inside. It was dim in the living room, but she could hear a snore, a soft creaking, coming from the direction of the rocking chair. She felt relieved knowing that she was not alone with her revolting thoughts. She was reminded that she had her family, her friends. They would not leave her any time soon. It did not put her mind completely at ease. The sickening sensation of having to endure all the torture still festered inside her belly. Applejack concluded that she only needed sleep, which she hoped would be dreamless. She was halfway across the room, planning on heading upstairs, when all the sound in the room halted abruptly. The earth pony stopped in her tracks. The snoring and the creaking were absent, which could have only meant one thing. "Sweetie, you're late. You missed supper." Applejack lowered her head. "I know, Granny. I slave away all evening cooking a good meal for you, and you think them apples are more important than your poor old Granny." A tear dripped off her fur. She tried not to choke up. I'm sorry, Granny." There was a silence, only filled with Applejack giving an occasional sniff. It may have been dark, but she could make out the outline of her wizened features, straining to get a look at her grandchild. She could not see her expression. "Applejack, what's the matter?" she asked, all traces of disappointment and scorn gone, replaced only with worry. "Ain't nothing wrong." "Don't you give me that hogwash. You're my little cauliflower, and I know you like the backside of my hoof." Her chair could be heard squeaking forward. My eyesight's not what it used to be, and it's darker than underside of a rock in Everfree yonder, but I know when you're feeling down, 'cause I feel it in my heart. Right now it's aching something fierce. So tell me, what's going on?" Abjad looked away and clenched her eyes shut. It's nothing. It's something between me and myself, Granny. No need to be concerned." Granny Smith sighed and slid off her rocking chair. Without hurry, she walked up to her granddaughter and gently lifted her chin with her withered hoof. Her green eyes were stained pink. The lines were that dictated the path of her tears were clearly visible, and it was apparent that she just let them run free off her face. Thin mucus trailed down from her nostrils. Abstract struggled to maintain her breathing. She hated being seen like this, not full of pride and confidence, but weakness and despondency. There was no way her image of strength and independence could be kept with crying eyes. Dearie, there ain't no such thing as you and yourself. You got a granny who's loved you from the day you were born. You have a big brother who would never think twice to help you when you need it. You have a sister who's always happy to see you. You have five of the nicest girls in all of Equestria to call your friends. We love with all our might, Applejack. Sometimes it's hard to see how that would help with your troubles, but just never forget that there are plenty of ponies who care about you. The orange pony threw her hooves around her grandmother, and hugged her tightly, nearly knocking the wind out of her. I love you, Granny. I love you. I love you. She held on like she feared that her benevolent guardian would be swept away at any time. The floodgates opened. I love you too, sweetie. I always will. Applejack continued to sob softly in Granny Smith's wrinkled shoulder, letting the moment pass wordlessly in darkness. The matriarch patiently held her cherished grandchild in her four hooves, and gave her all the time she needed. When her racking body finally calmed enough, Granny broke the silence. Don't ever be afraid to share your troubles once a while, Sugar Cube. Sometimes just talking to ponies can make you feel right as rain. The cow pony gazed up with her blurry irises. She wanted to speak, but she could not feel the proper words. Her grandma took the chance to talk instead. Besides, you have Ellis, that Ellis fellow too. He seems like the kind to talk to. Abject's lids flew wide open. Ellis, where is he? Is he back yet? Granny scratched her chin. I don't think so. There'd be a lot more noise coming from Lil Abloom if he did. She seems to think the world of that stallion. Apparently she was still clueless to the fact that he was not a pony. Abject felt inexplicable terror clutch her heart. Her breath quickened. He wasn't here. He wasn't back yet. He hasn't come back yet. A thought wormed into her mind. Something might have happened to him. She felt the paramount need to make sure he was all right. She couldn't think of anything that might have happened to him, but the demons that had scourged her mind swooped all at the opening, doing away with her rational thought and replacing them with harrowing, implausible conclusions. She didn't want to lose her new friend, who deserved happiness and protection for all that he's endured. Abject was panting feverishly now. O.T. 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 Granny Smith was confused. Hold up now. Where's the fire? Fire. An atrocious vision of Ellis being immolated into a charred corpse inside of a burning building conjured itself in her mind, all the while screaming in agony. Obsidian banshees cackled upon their twisted perches, drinking in his suffering with their own evil amusement. Abject's worst apprehension reignited, but so did her energy and determination. She grinded her teeth together. She would not allow anything to happen to him. Without another word, she bolted out the front door and galloped down the path that led to Ponyville, leaving Granny in a daze among the turbulence gust that her grandchild had just created. She went to the door and tried to call out to Applejack. Wait, there ain't no need for... Friend, come back here! She couldn't hear her. She had already sprinted a lengthy distance between her and the house. Her soaked cheeks stung in the whipping wind, eyes only looking forward, set on her lantern-lit destination. She ran on. I'm a-comin', Ellis. Don't worry. Everything will be fine. She yelled those words so she can hear herself say, and prayed Slutchy that they were true. Sawdust entered the tavern once more, now with the inclusion of his coin purse. Getting it back had been relatively short and not frustrating. The owner was just about to lock up and when he got there, but he was a reasonable pony, so he let Sawdust run inside, get his belongings without a question. He was thankful that karma had blessed him once again. Upon walking in, upon walking in the door, it seemed that the merriment had reached full swing for the bar. The general air seemed charged with enthusiasm, and the auditory ambience was so loud that one had to shout to be heard. What put him off guard, though, was that Ballpeen was waiting for him inside the door. His anxiety was plain in Sawdust. "Peen, what's up?" he vocalized over the dense noise of the room. "Well, we kinda got a problem." The problem became apparent with only a quick glance to the human sitting in the counter. His voice stood out from the others, since it was probably the heaviest southern accent in the world, in the room. His cheeks were pink, and he swayed in his seat, a glass of sloshing whiskey held under his palm as he regained his compromised balance. An idiotic smile plastered itself on his face as he rambled on with bartender. "So you ever play TF2? Awesome game." His body convulsed slightly with a muffled hiccup when he continued. "You kind of remind me the sniper. All you need is a hat and a vest. You'd be a perfect match." He knocked back the rest of his drink and slammed it down with a cough, followed by wheezing laughter. Rum Run had no idea what he was talking about, nor anything that he had said before, but she didn't mind. She was too busy relishing the glow of yet another flawless victory. "What the hey is happening, Ping?" the Sawdust exclaimed. Ballpeen shifted uncomfortably in his hooves. "Well, Rum Run gave Ellis a few free drinks to see him how much a human could take. Turns out, not a lot." Both turned back to Ellis, who had an equally intoxicated purple mare careening in their arms in the seat next to him. The pair were engaged in abysmally deep philosophical debate on the subject of connotation of love and beauty, the likes of which had not been known for centuries since the legendary unicorn scholars of the pre-classical era. Alas, our myopic, unsophisticated comprehension of linguistics and subtlety could only perceive these groundbreaking revelation as the following. "Oh God, you're sexy." "No, you're sexy," Barry Punch slurred back. "No, I think you're the one that's sexy. My sexiness levels are not as good as yours. God damn it, I think you may be slightly more sexy than me." So on and so forth. Sawdust could not be any more exasperated. "Dude, I was only gone for 30 minutes. "Yeah, and he's only had 3 glasses so far," he responded phlegmatically. "You were supposed to watch him. Why didn't you stop Rum?" Floppy hesitated. His eyes darted around. Well," the chromatic faces stuttered. She's not very approachable, and he trailed off, but Sawdust spied the redness surface on his face. Realization dawned upon him. "Oh, hey, frickin' no, Payne. You don't tell me that you have the hots for Rum Run." "What? No." He broke eye contact. "Well, maybe just a little." He was not convinced for a second. "Dude, she's like 20 years older than you." Ballpeen stood there for a long time, looking at the ground, then his friend, then back to the ground, then his friend once more. Does that really matter?" "Oh, forget it." Sawdust pushed past him and strode to the bar where Ellis was blundering. He took his seat next to the human, clearing his throat. "Hey, Ellis." Ellis swung around. God damn it. Why is there so many people doing this? Ballpeen stood there long enough. Ellis swung around. "No! You know what? Just fucking leave. Just fucking leave. You're screwing this all up." Ellis swung around in his chair and grinned in the sight of his friend. "Saw, how you doing?" Been better, he replied. "That's great." He tipped his glass up, but when nothing touched his tongue, he squinted into his raised shot glass and set it back down on the counter with an expectant look at Rum. She kindly obeyed with a smirk, pouring him another fill of whiskey. "Thank you kindly," he said before taking another drink. "Your friend made a mule of himself, thinking he could best me," Rum Run boasted to Sawdust. He glared at the bartender, but let her continue, sticking drunk from the first 3 drinks. That's almost a new record. Hey, Ellis spoke up. I ain't too drunk till I'm dead, 'kay? Sure, sure. How could you do this to me, Rum? Sawdust complained. I keep myself in good standing. I pay my tab. I don't cause trouble. Then I turn around for half a frickin' hour, and what happens? You get the first human in Equestria's head up his plot. Oh no, he did that all by himself. You provoked him. I'm just the barkeep, Mayor. I only give him the drink, made a recommendation or two. Well, now we have to deal with him, so thanks a lot, he snorted. Oh, don't be so glum. He's doing fine so far. Just been sitting here chatting with that lovely mare. She began wiping the counter with a moist cloth. Nearby, Ellis had resumed his conversation with Berry Punch. Same subject. They were both starting to use terms like times infinity and infinity plus one. Ballpeen by this time had quietly crept up and taken his place beside Sawdust. The timid Pegasus gave a meek wave to Rum Run. She in turn gave him a wink. Sawdust glanced about. Has he said anything, strange or scary? Bartender displayed big amusement. Strange, yes. He's been talking nonstop about Celestia knows what. Scary. I don't think I could even take the bloke seriously. Why do you ask? He sighed in relief. Forget it. Can I get a cider now? Coming right up, Ace. The unicorn received his mug shortly, topped the hay-colored froth, contored his foreleg around the tankard. He raised it to his lips. All of a sudden, Ellis sat up, stool as if he had just been smacked hard with a recollection. He nearly fell out of his seat. Sawdust coughed up beside her, and he swallowed too forcefully due to the human's impulsive action. I just remembered! Ellis exclaimed. Half a dozen ponies turned their heads toward him. Rum Run raised his eyebrow. I just remembered the time me and Nick found this store moonshine in this swamp safe room. Sawdust's stomach did a flip. He knew this story. He knew how it went. He also knew that the Z word would come up one way or another. He was not a pony to be troubled with apprehension. Quite the opposite, actually. It has always been his personal principle to not worry about the future, to relax and let the currents of time gently float him wherever fate dictated. This was exception. He did not have to have pinky senses to know what would happen next couldn't be any good. So we found 3 crates of this stuff packed in bathroom, all sitting in glass jars and shit. Nick took a couple for himself, and the rest we didn't want to go to waste, see? So what we did was we tied glass-soaked rags to them and stuffed as many as we could in a backpack and took them with us as ammunition. I gotta carry it, though. Rum Run leaned in to try and get a better understanding of what he was trying to say, which more or less 25 years of experience making drinks behind the counter. She had heard some fascinating stories coming from those too inebriated to tell up from down. A story coming from a non-pony intrigued her even more. This one was certainly odd, just like his previous dribble, but for the first time since he had became consciously drunk, and this actually had some coherence. You know what happened? Hunter pounced on me, tore the pack off before we got to use any of it. He could probably smell them for a mile away, darn shame. He looked at the mare across the counter, who had stopped idly cleaning the glass and stared back at him in stupefaction. Hunter? Ellis grumbled. I just gotta keep explaining and explaining. Slowly and almost lethargically, he stepped off of his bar stool and shambled away and bounced with bouncing steps, thumbs in his pockets. Abruptly, he wheeled around with speeds. Rum could never have expected from one with that much alcohol in his system that, slamming his hands on the counter, Sawdust yelped. Berry Punch tumbled off her seat. Ballpeen quickly dived to catch a glass that he had knocked off, and every pony in the room reared their heads at the source of the commotion. No pony made a sound. All that could be heard was a crackling of the incandescent fire. Let me tell you what a hunter is. He raised his voice so everyone in the tavern could hear him. A hunter is one mean son of a bitch. He can leap 30 or 40 feet into the air, pin you down, and rip your guts out before you can blink. Without waiting for any sort of response, Ellis lifted his shirt for everyone to see. Some of them gasped at what they saw. Rum Run had seen lots of things in her days, but she had never been more taken aback by what she saw that night. Scars, a messy crisscross of plucking gouges, and all lacerations covered his abdominals. It was a wonder how he could still move with that many cuts. His muscles could have all been torn beyond repair. He languidly rotated a full 360, vaunting the wounds to all the onlookers. Even Barry Punch, still on the floor, caught a glimpse. Scars are sexy, she thought quietly to herself. And that ain't even the worst of it. He pulled off his pant leg and showed them the ass burns. Spitter, he displayed a bruise on the side of his ribcage. Charger, he traced a pink rash that circled his entire neck. Smoker, and he grabbed the waistline of his overalls and then stopped himself. On second thought, probably better if you didn't see that one. He turned around once more and faced his captivated audience. Now y'all may be thinking, Ellis, you got more scars than the number of breaths you took today. Why you still alive? Truth be damn well told, I should be dead 6 or 7 times over, but I ain't. To escalate his speech, he bounded off and leapt off into the nearest wooden table. Patrons sitting there jeered when their drinks were spilled. He swayed slightly in the uneven surface before continuing. Look at me now, still living and still in one piece. I know why, 'cause them zombies, they tried to kill me. I just killed them back. He stepped around the center of the table and his drunken showboating. That's right. I'm Ellis, that one and only professional zombie killer. I take care of the monsters so y'all have a place to come home to. He bent down and breathed his whiskey-saturated breath into the face of some random Blue Earth pony. Said pony sunk into his seat, so y'all don't end up as some undead guy's lunch. The pony gulped hard. Ellis hopped off the table and took one last canter around the room. I certainly don't get nothing to prove to you folks. I certainly don't. Gotta hold my liquor to show y'all that I'm a man. I already paid for that with my sweat and blood. Imbecile! Shouted from the far end of the room. Every pony, Ellis included, turned their gaze to the table of 4 unicorns dressed in fancy clothing. From their posh appearance, all of Ponyville could immediately recognize that they are from Camelot. More specifically, they were a group of unicorn fencers from Camelot. Ponies who used magic and traditional swordplay as their sport. The apparent leader of the group set his hat on the table and left his chair. You are an imbecile, he repeated. Ghastly creature. You may not be a pony, but you are certainly not a fighter. You lack the qualities of discipline required to even wield a weapon, let alone use one. He addressed the rest of the room. You don't honestly believe him, do you? He is only a drunken fool, spouting off lies and tall tales. Ellis squinted to get a better look of his accuser. He was a reddish-brown unicorn with a tightly curled dark mane, and in his stupor he couldn't clearly describe his eye color, but his cue mark looked like 2 crossed sabers. So you all call me a liar, are you? He challenged, the air choked with sweating tension. Not a word came from the audience. The unicorn glared back at him with every bit of confidence that came with 3 gold dueling tournament medals. He was not intimidated by his size. I'm calling you on an outright fabrication. You insult me to say that you can slay monsters. You can barely stand. The mechanic narrowed his eyes. What's your name? Curved Swords. Ellis made an overly animated gesture and cupped his hand around his ears. Didn't catch that. Curved Swords, he enunciated rather harshly. Well, Mr. Swords, he put his left foot past the right and balled his hands in a fist. If you think you can go toe-to-toe, hoof with me, then I got no problem with that. We'll see once and for all who's right and who's ain't. Her swords tensed his muscles and scraped his hoof across the ground. I accept your challenge. Ellis, what the freak all out? Hey, are you doing? Sawdust trotted up to the side of the tall human ready for fisticuffs, but only acknowledged his co-worker with a fleeting glance. I got this, he said. The two brawlers began to circle each other. You're drunk, man. You can't win. That don't matter none. Just you watch. I'll have his ass on the floor in 10 seconds flat. 12 seconds later, Ellis barely had time to give a yelp as he was tossed out of the door and hit the dirt rolling. A fresh hoof mark on his was stamped on his face. Standing in the doorway, Cursor spat on the ground in front of him. Clearly turned around and door slammed. Coughing, he used shaky arms to roll himself onto his back and lay there, drained of the strength and motivation to get up. He merely stared into the stars, into the glowing crescent moon. He had no memory of the fight and nothing to show of it but a pounding brain cage and a kicked ass. Ellis groaned and rubbed his hand over his face. The prancing show pony's doors opened once more. Quite a show you put on in there, mate. Rum Run coolly walked out of the bar and strutted around Ellis's splayed form. Kinda was wishing you'd put a better fight with that stuck-up Canterlot sod, but I guess this ain't a perfect world after all. He grunted. No, mate. Think nothing of it. No, mate, think nothing of it. I like you. You're a charming lad, a bit cuckoo, but you're certainly the most interesting thing I've come across in a long time. Come back other time, okay? Now, about that payment. She reached into his pocket and took out his pouch of gold, opening the drawstrings and scooped out a little more than half of its contents. My, a big tipper, are we? I'm flattered. She added the bits to her own coin purse and stepped back into the tavern. Please do it. Pleasure doing business with you. Ellis sighed and continued to watch the somber night sky. The oppressive stench of perspiration, clot, and tobacco mingled with the atmosphere of a confined safe room. Howls and screeches, ever present, piercing through thick iron doors. Ellis sat on an old, abused couch, staring at his shotgun and pistols. The cushions, which had long ago lost its springiness, sank with his weight. Keith stood at the kitchen counter, sorting through a large pile of miscellany for things he could use. He was speaking. A smoldering cigar hung from his lips and bobbed his mouth. So then the dumb fucker tried to grab me with his other arm, so I shot off that one too. He must have figured out he was fucked with both of his arms gone, so he tried leaping away, missed by a mile, and smashed his own face into a window. These zombies are a lot stronger, but they ain't any smarter, you know what I'm saying, Ellis? Ellis shook his head and cleared out of his daze. Sorry, man, I totally spaced out on you. Keith turned back to the jumble of stuff. It's fine. I was just rambling anyhow. Hey, how many do you think you killed? The grease monkey scratched his head. I might have lost track. Me too. They both shared a quiet laugh. Then it petered out and Keith resumed sorting. Ellis picked up one of his pistols and scrutinized it in great detail for no particular reason, only in trying to pass his time while they rested and waited for another round of zombie hell. For them it was mostly a blast. Ellis had forgotten about all of his troubles as soon as he started shooting them. Fighting for survival wasn't so bad when you have plenty of shotgun shells and your best friend at your side. With the help of Keith, he had quietly gained all the savviness he needed to defend himself from the hordes of monsters. The special infected are really the only ones they needed to watch out for. He said it wasn't a regular zombie infestation like in the movies or video games, and that was why. One of those things could have wiped both of them out. It was lucky that they haven't come across anything big yet. Suddenly, Keith's cig flew from his mouth to his pitched over, as he pitched over in a loud coughing fit, muffled into his sleeve. Ellis stood up. They sounded painful. Jesus, man, you alright? Keith recovered with a moment of time, just like he always has. Yeah, man, it's just these damn cigarettes. I know they ain't good for me. You quit a long time ago. Why'd you go and start again? He shook his head. I used to be a heavy smoker. Even when I quit, a bit of it stuck with me. That kind of stuff, man. You think it's gone, but it ain't. It kind of stuff never goes away. Ellis nodded and, understanding, and sat back down. We're gonna have to have a hell of a time kicking it again after this. Yeah, that's gonna be a bitch after all this, Keith said with his head bowed. He hoped with all of his will that his friend wouldn't see the dark stain on his sleeve that wasn't there before. He yawned out items, yanked out 2 items from the pile. Hey, Ellis. With a gentle toss, they landed on the couch next to Ellis. It was a brand new machete with a roll of tape. Found this stuff here. That'll come in handy when you run out of bullets. You can wrap that grip tape around it too. Should hold better. Unsheathing the tool, Ellis keenly inspected the machine's sharpened edge. The feel of the blade felt perfect in his hand. He smiled with the anticipation of using this against the next zombie unlucky enough to get within range of him. With his friend's advice, he covered the handle in tape. It felt like he could never let go of the gift. Thanks, man. You remembered my birthday. He joked. He chuckled. Merry Christmas to you, too. He grabbed his shotgun and pumped the slide with a satisfying... Are you ready to kill some zombie bitches? He grinned with mirth as he mimicked his friend's action with his own shotgun. I was born ready. Ellis, sweet Celeste, where are you? Abject galloped through the dank streets, bare hoofs clopping on the hard cobbled stone. Her vision was strained. The only source of light was the dim, flickering lamps from inside the buildings overlooking the roads, number of which decreased as the denizens extinguished them and went to their beds to sleep. Abject had no time for sleep, even though her limbs threatened to give at any moment. She saw it, a shape that could only be Ellis, and nothing else, lying on the cold ground in front of the local tavern, alone and unmoving. Her breath caught in her throat. Oh my gosh. She rushed to his side and nudged him firmly with her front hoof. He stirred, but Abject didn't allow herself any relief until she was sure that he was okay. Ellis, please, say something. Anything. Please be all right. With agonizing slowness, Ellis brought his arm up and put his hand close to Abject's face. Then he grabbed her pony nose and squeezed it twice. Honk honk, he snickered. All the worry that orange farm pony built up climatically pancaked into plain noise as she caught the whiff of whiskey on him. Why do I even bother?